Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle, presented as always by Remington Tavern. This show does come to you live from the Cincy Light Studios, but Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, Bottle Cap Bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y. Or follow them on Facebook. Be sure if you stop in there, get yourself an ice cold Cincy Light on tap. George, how are we?
Well, doing okay, yeah.
Good. You had a good Easter weekend?
Yeah, all that was good. Had a lot of good food on, well, way too much over the weekend. I put on about 5 pounds as I found out on the scale today, so that's not good. I got to watch that stuff, man, at my age, especially getting over a back surgery and I can't do anything anyway. Hopefully I get cleared in a week, though.
Well, hopefully you do.
Yep, that's hopefully next Monday I'll get the news and start stretching this thing out a little more because it is tight.
Well,
Washers in there.
First and foremost, this morning, I guess it was this morning, we found out the terrible news that the offensive lineman Jeremiah Kelly, true freshman for the Cincinnati Bearcats, had passed away. Did want to offer out my condolences, and that I can't even imagine as a father of two and a bonus dad of two more. I can't imagine what any parent is going through losing a child, and that awful news for the team.
Yeah, it's sad. My condolences as well. It's not fair. Way too young, and it makes an older guy like me almost, it's like, I just don't know why that happens. And it's tough. It's very, very tough. And, the UC football team went through this a little over 10 years ago with the young man from Hamilton, Ben Flick, in the auto accident. And, his father, Rick, became a big part of the Bearcat family and the football family, and, made the best of it. And that's, tough to do, tough to even think about at this point for what this young man's family's going through. You just pray they get through it and, come out the other side and can find some kind of peace.
Yeah, it's just not the news you want to wake up to. That's
no, just awful. I just feel bad for everybody and the family, the kids he was getting to know on the football team, and it's just such a jolt. I just hopefully, like I said, everybody can eventually find their peace, but it's a lot easier said than done.
Yep. Moving off of that news, though, on a much lighter note, the Bearcats have been making moves in the portal. And yesterday, I think it was yesterday, they made it official for Mustafa Cham coming to Cincinnati by way of UCF, our rivals down in Orlando. And they also bring in a forward from Baylor, another Big 12 adversary, in Jalen Celestine. What were your initial thoughts as you see the two new additions for this roster, George?
Well, first of all, Cham, watching him play this year, and he reclassified. So he, would have been a high school player this past year, but he played at Central Florida as a freshman. When he reclassified, he was a 4-star recruit, was going to be a 5-star recruit in that 2025 class. So this is a great get for the Bearcats. I love his game. He's got some offense to his game. Actually shoots threes a little bit. It's just, I
A
saw
lot of it.
him finish some plays inside with some contact and stuff that made me pretty excited. Now, the lob lives on for Cincinnati because he likes to do that a lot too. That's something I was kind of, hoping wouldn't be a complete staple of the team going forward unless it works at a high clip. With a guy 7'2", maybe it will. Hopefully a little higher clip than what it did at times this year with Aziz. But this kid's fantastic. I mean, he is a player, going to end up probably in the NBA. Still has some things to work on, but already projected an early second round pick next year. Maybe he'll stick around a couple years and try to get into that lottery the following year. Hopefully he has that kind of potential, but he's a beast on the court. I mean, watching that Crown tournament game, I'm sitting there watching this dude and some of the stuff he did, and you're just like, God, it'd be nice to have a dude like that in the middle that, you can dump it into and actually has some moves and can finish through contact. And it's not just slam dunks, and actually can shoot it out top a little bit too. If he wants to go out there and give it a go, it's not a Hail Mary. He's actually, still young enough that he can develop that part of his game as well. And we'll see how it all fits together. And then Celestine, they get out of Baylor, who's a heck of a shooter. And what did this team need? A heck of a shooter. They need somebody. And I watched, when they got him, I watched tape on him because I didn't remember a whole lot of him from the games UC played. And he certainly finds the open spots out on the perimeter. It's kind of funny that, that shouldn't be a hard thing for a shooter to do, but he gets himself in a spot where he, can get his shot off. And, it's if there's something, this guy seems to fit what it is the Bearcats were lacking when you saw the pieces come together in the portal. And, a dude that can fill it up out there at the 3-point line. And I think his numbers probably would have been a little better if he was on a team that maybe needed to rely on him more. Baylor didn't. They obviously had some terrific players who scored a little more than he did, but it's a great fit for this roster, in my opinion. I'm not sure. He did show some flashes of rebounding and hopefully defensively he can handle that. But we'll see. Now it's up to Wes to put all this together and make it work. And, he's definitely still got his work cut out for him in that regard because, I like to see these guys when they all throw them all together and you can see how it's working. And I probably won't get that chance till November, but usually early on you can kind of tell, hey, this guy's got it. This one maybe isn't as good as I thought. And I'm going to wait and reserve judgment till then on, declaring the Bearcats tournament bound because I think we thought they were tournament bound last year as well. But certainly, as we sit here tonight, as opposed to a week ago, I'm pretty fired up about what they've picked up.
Yeah, Chom averaged 10.4 points, 6.4 rebounds, nearly 1 assist per game. He had 2.6 blocks, George.
Yeah.
Only 1.3 turnovers. A lot to be excited about there, and 29.1% from the arc. So he also
hopefully he makes a jump too next year after his first year of college ball.
Yeah, he can play with his back to the basket, and he's got some moves. He's got the baby hook there. So there's some different things in his bag in regards to his offense that we've been lacking at the 5.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, if the ball goes into him, it doesn't necessarily get lost. And you mentioned the turnover rate, and that's a great sign for a guy who's, getting the ball dumped into him a lot, that he's not turning it over a lot. And, I think we all know what we've seen, out of the interior of the Bearcats the last few years has been rather deficient in that department.
You'd also think that his offense would adjust spacing for this team as that's something that I feel like this offense struggled with at times last season. And you add a guy like Celestine as well, who can knock down a three at 38% from the arc for his career. That would be second last season, only behind Day Thomas, who was at 40%. So yeah, you definitely can never have too much good shooting behind the arc.
Yeah, and I liked a lot of times they were tough shots that I saw him making from three. Now, sometimes he's wide open. Like I said, he's got this ability or this sense to just drift where they ain't, and they found him, and he had some open looks. But when he was guarded, I saw him make some difficult shots, and some of them he was fouled on, and some of them he did a little move and a step back and hit a three, and that's something this team has been lacking. Even when guarded, he was able to create a shot a little bit. And so I think he fits what they need. Hopefully he can keep up the good work when it comes to shooting. He's got a nice stroke, pretty quick release. I was fairly impressed. The first video I saw on him, I was just afraid all he was a, wide open 3-point guy. But the more I started looking and seeing, he was doing a little bit more and more to make it work. And it was just uncanny how he can find those open spots in the defense, whether it's half quarter or transition. He just seems to float to the right spot.
Well, both those pieces are certainly something that this team was missing last season, and it's encouraging to see, in my opinion, this team going after guys in the portal that have been there before, have done it before in this conference, especially not guys from mid-major teams that you're hoping make the step, but guys that have actually been in a power conference in the Big 12 and have done it before.
Yeah, and that's and that's not to slight some of the guys who do come from the mid majors or lower tier programs, that because some of those guys do shine. But it is nice to know that there's not going to be a transition for these guys they brought in. Right. Haynes might be the only one, and even that, he was playing in the A-10. That's not going to be, it's not going to be night and day. It is going to be a step up in competition when you get to Big 12 for sure. But he seemed like he's nasty enough. He'll be able to handle it. And then the other guys have all pretty much been there and done that at that level. And that's great, because you don't know until they get out there and face these other guys. And now we know with these guys, it can be done.
Kirk Risa being at Arizona, West Virginia, and Kentucky, and Sincere Harris being at West Virginia as well. Just a bunch of guys who, like I said, have been there before, in this conference outside of Big Slime. So it'll be interesting to see, but it's starting to come together. You figure they're probably going to add, I would imagine, at least another 4, as Tyler McKinley's your only other 4 that we haven't mentioned, outside of, and he's probably a 4 or 5 tweener guy, outside of Jam and Jalen Haynes. So, and Halvine Zella as well. He'd be your third center at this point now. So, I would hope that they'd be bringing in at least another 4.
Yeah, and it's I wish I knew what kind of money all this was costing too. I because I'm surprised they were able to get a guy like Chom, and I guess maybe some of it had to do with relationship, but still, you got to pay something close, right, to what he's going to get somewhere else before that even matters. So someone was able to step up and land a pretty big fish here. And I still don't like all this stuff, but me not liking it isn't going to change it. You still got to field a team. So you got to go out and get it done. And I'm sure there's 100 coaches that feel like I do, but they got to, you got to do it. There's a lot of stuff I didn't like about my job too, and stuff maybe I do, but it was like, what are you going to do? I can't change the fact that it's television and people have to look at this face. I still got to go on there.
Yeah, Chom was the second-ranked center by 24/7 in the portal, behind only Jaden Quaintance. So I can't imagine that was a cheap fill for this roster.
No, because you name a team and they probably need a big man, whether it's a starter or someone to give them 15 plus minutes or more. Everybody's looking for those guys.
It's kind of like that left tackle spot on the football team.
Yeah,
you can never have too many of them.
No, you find a big man that can move their feet, and that's rare, and so that's why it's so hard to find good ones.
Speaking of left tackles, George, the Bearcats were able to land arguably the best offensive lineman in the portal in Joe Cotton, as he comes by way of the University of South Dakota, with maybe the most South Dakota name ever in Joe Cotton. They also land the linebacker Daryl Gibson. He comes from Idaho State. Your thoughts on those two guys coming to join the football team here at the University of Cincinnati?
Thrilled about it. I think the linebacker seems like, if I remember right, freshman. He played 1 year, maybe. I can't remember, but he had numbers that made me feel like he can, he's going to progress pretty well. And then Joe Cotton, what a great get. And the Bearcats seem to have really helped their offensive line since the end of last season. And they've got enough guys coming back, and then you mix in these new guys, and that staff's done a good job taking care of where their weaknesses were. And we saw 2 years ago glaring weaknesses all over the place, and they seem like they've done a pretty good job when you talk about the defensive backfield. And while the offensive line was strong coming back, there were still some issues, and then certainly some big holes this year after what they lost to graduation last year. So to beef that back up, and take care of the wide receivers at the same time, enough that, Tony Johnson, I guess, is leaving now, right? And he emerged as a fairly valuable piece at the end of the year, and now, here it is 4 months later, and he's thinking, I may not get on the field as much as I think I should. So, best of luck to him for sure. I hate to see him go because he did come through pretty good at the end of the season for UC, but that's the nature of this beast now. And it sounds like the Bearcats brought in some good ones to fill up that wide receiver room. So it's, to me, it looks like they've done a pretty good job shoring up where they were, where the weaknesses were a year and a half ago.
Yeah, the guys that they brought in between Jeff Caldwell, Cyrus Allen, Caleb Goody, you've even seen the true freshman Gio Contosis stepping up. And then you have some returning pieces like a Barry Jackson. The wide receiver room is very different at this point than it was last season, and you have to be excited about what that means for this team. So happy trails to you, Tony Johnson.
For the Bearcats this coming year, what he did for me on the college football game. That dude was a monster for me. I mean, he was returning punts and kicks for touchdowns. He was all I had to do was see, okay, he's isolated on a go route. Here it is, air it out, and he's right there. I would love to see him have that kind of year, but I don't know how much he'll get to see the field. But man, college football 25 or whatever the hell it's called, they put some jets on that young man.
Well, 26 right around the corner, George, July, I believe. But
right, there's another $70.
Good ads though by the Bearcats in this portal, and even going back to the original portal and now here in the spring. So I don't know if they're done yet. We'll see. But you have to be excited about what this team is putting together. And look, I felt okay about them last season. I feel better about them this season going into the break here before fall camp.
Yeah, and there's some continuity there too with Sorsby coming back as
Yeah.
quarterback, and he's going to know this system like the back of his hand. So that's all good, and it seems like you lose Kiner, but they were able to bring in Walker, and they've got some other good running backs that they can rely on, and so yeah, I'm fairly pumped too. I'm going to be interested to see what they put out there, and I think it'll be competitive in most spots, but you never know till September rolls around and you see them come out on that field and start hitting for real.
Real quick, looking at the chat. Good evening to you, Crypt Keeper. Tim agrees with us, George. He says it's been a great portal so far, no question better than last year. That's in reference to the basketball portal.
Yeah.
The Graybush said that we did lose to the Marlins. I was watching. That stinks. It is brutal. Randy wants to know.
That play at first base was just terrible.
Randy wants to know, George, what Bearcat has been the best shot creator you have watched play? Steve Logan, Jaron Cumberland, Nick Van Exel, maybe someone else.
Those are some great names right there. My God.
I feel like you could probably throw in SK. You could probably throw in.
Yeah, you'd have to throw him in there for sure.
Troy Caupain.
Boy. There's man, how can you? I mean, look at those names right there. If you just go out of those three, I would say Nick, but then you think about what Jaron Cumberland did, and like when UC needed a bucket, and SK was the same way. They would find some way to score, right? Yeah. Or get to the line. Lou Banks, my God, Lou Banks. If you ever saw that guy create his own shot.
I don't think it's crazy to even put Landers and Ollie in there.
This guy perfected basically going into the defender and shoving him back and then just a little fade away. Oh, it's unbelievable. I honest to God, I couldn't believe they let him get away with it. But Lou would have to be up there as a guy who was able to, he was more of a bully, but I think Jaron was kind of a bully too when it came to creating the shot. I think SK was, if he needed to be, and certainly all three of those guys spent a lot of time on the free throw line too.
I don't think it'd be crazy to throw in Landers and Ollie name into that hat as well.
He's really the last, tough perimeter shooter they had that could create out there. And there would be times he would launch a shot, and I'm like, how's he even going to get that to the rim? You know what I mean? Because it seemed like there was almost no legs in it at that point because he's fading away or doing this. And by golly, he found a way to do it. But those three are good ones right there, too. I mean, to pick one, I don't know that I can. Seriously, the minute I think Cumberland, it's like, wait a minute, Nick Van Exel, are you kidding me? And Logan with all the points he scored. And that's another dude, he lived at the line some and made everything. If you needed a bucket.
Darren says Fortson as a big was also hard to stop.
My God, he dumped it down to him low. That was the thing. And teams would try to deny that, and when they couldn't, and he had such good hands. Like, he could catch anything. Like, there was any ball dumped into him, he pretty much ripped it, got it, and once it was there, game over.
Also in the chat, I don't know how true this is, but Joe says that they paid $2.6 million for the center and $1 million for the forward. If that's true, that's a lot of money being thrown around.
Yes, it is. That is a ton of money being thrown around. I'm glad somebody's pitching in because I want to see a few victories next year.
I hear you. Amen. Moving on, though, because we got a lot to get to tonight. There is a draft this week, George.
Oh, yes,
the NFL draft will be on Thursday. But before we get to the draft talk, there was some news that came out of Paycor Stadium today, George.
Yeah. It sounds positive, doesn't it?
This sounds extremely positive. This sounds like, I don't know, something that would keep you around and signing a lease extension.
Right.
But Hamilton County and the Bengals have tentatively agreed to $830 million worth of renovations for the stadium. They also secured a loan from the NFL to help with financing this project, George, which would be the NFL's first investment in Paycor Stadium. What are
Well,
your
and I'm
thoughts
glad the NFL's doing that too, which is great
here? Yeah,
because come on, they make so much money. Um, I'm sure they can afford a loan, but it's good that they are starting to finally drill down and get to some um, real solutions that make sense. And so it will be a shared responsibility, and I can live with that for sure. And I thought of you the minute I heard this news this morning. I'm like, I know someone who's doing cartwheels over this. Uh, but I think they'll get it done. I mean, this definitely sounds more like good faith negotiating and
agree.
everybody involved trying to make this happen and get it to the finish line. And that's what you have to have. I mean, this is a mammoth project. It's a mammoth headache. Uh, it's probably, what are we looking at? 25 years now for that stadium, I guess. So maybe this is something that should have been done, over the past 10 years, but
Sure.
hopefully they can catch back up and make it what they want and make it agreeable to all parties and not screw the taxpayers. That would be good with me.
Well, there's always going to be some taxpayers that will never be happy with a penny being spent on that stadium. And
Yeah, I know. I get it. I do. Depending on the studies you look at and what kind of economic impact it really does or doesn't have on the region, but I fail to see how it can't have some positive impact when you see what downtown is like the weekend of a Bengals home game, and you see what the hotels are like and the restaurants are like. I mean, it brings a lot of people to town. It really does. I mean, you have a lot of fans that obviously travel there, but then you look at all the crap people buy for tailgating, and then look at all the bars that are filled up on Sunday afternoons with people not going to get to the game if it's a home game. And still, your bars are filled with people watching the Bengals game and, wearing their jerseys and stuff. So I got to believe there's an economic impact there that
absolutely.
helps everybody.
Yep. And like I said, this does not necessarily extend the lease. But to your point, it is a good faith negotiation. And you would think that this helps you get closer to that finish line as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem it seems like even last week, it seemed like there was tension and it wasn't, and, the commissioners were saying their thing and nobody else seemed to be budging. And here we are a week later, and it just seems like everybody's like, oh yeah, we should probably all get together and figure this thing out and come up with the best plan for everybody involved. And that's what they need to do. And hopefully they get this thing done and that's not looming over the season and looming over, next off season, because, Katie said it that they could leave in a year. I don't think they will, but they could. So it would be best to have this plan fast tracking. And I think everyone involved also feels like it's probably in their best interest to do so.
Yeah. I mean, Randy says here in the chat, ask St. Louis what happens when your NFL team moves. And
Exactly.
well, that one was stolen from them. Let's call that what it is.
Yeah. And it's a shame. And Cincinnati's not going to get it back if it goes. I mean,
no.
It's just, it's those franchises don't grow on trees, and every city would love to have one, and they've got one here, and you don't want to lose it.
Absolutely. But getting to the business of the week, the Bengals still sit at 17. And we talked a little bit about what position they might address. We've heard some things come out from some different people this week. Duke Tobin's talked a little bit. One of his scouts actually said that they're looking BPA. And look, if you think that this team's in a position to draft best player available, you probably have a little bit more faith in this roster than I currently do. Because don't know that they're necessary. You would love to be every season where you can take the best player available. That's
Right.
utopia. But I don't know that that's where this team's at.
No, not if the best player available is a quarterback, a wide receiver, a running back, or a tight end, in my opinion. Everybody else is on the table in my book. Maybe not corner in that first round. And the closer this gets, the more I almost think, unless there's some it guy that the Bengals are all in on right now, and there could be, I think they'll probably explore some trading. And I know they're not known for that, but I also know they'd like to have more than 6 picks in this draft.
I don't hate the idea of trading back in the first round, George.
Right.
Because I think in that 17 spot, I think there's some guys that you could, if you slide back to around 22, 24, somewhere around there, I think that you could probably get a guy that's worth almost as much as what you have graded at that 17 spot.
Right.
So I'm with you. The more that I look at this draft right now and how many guys I think that you could probably pencil in at that 17 pick for this team, I'm totally with you that I think that you could trade back and still get a guy that you have slotted in there.
And it's, it's rare for them to monkey around with that, but I think they've got to be thinking that way. I really do. However, say they stay at 17, I mean, they're going to get somebody that should be immediate help, but I don't know which way they'll go. I mean, you would think defense for sure, right? But
I would think
there's
so.
still, I mean, you look down and you still need offensive linemen and when it comes to guard or tackle. And the more I look at their roster, and it's like, thank God for Cody Ford that he's still around, because I mean, he can at least be some help somewhere in there if you need a tackle or a guard. But they definitely need that somewhere in this draft, because look at their starting tackles. Okay, you got Mims and you got Brown, and then behind them, what do you got?
Cody Ford.
Right. I mean, so you've got that staring you in the face, but even more than that, you got this, Trey Hendrickson thing out there, and Hubbard's retired, and you've got, you've got Murphy and Osai, and oh gosh, there's another one I'm forgetting. That
Cam Sample.
Cam Sample. That you're hoping still can, become starting caliber players, or certainly help, but you don't know for sure. So I would, then you go to linebacker, they can use help there. And there's probably, there's a guy there that might be able to fit Al Golden like a glove. I'll tell you what, they're putting a lot of heat on Al Golden, because, all that stuff on the offensive side of the ball. And now he's got, his best player is wanting a trade. Von Bell's probably gone. Mike Hilton's probably gone. He's going to have to do some good work this year to put that defense together. And I think they're also going to rely on him to help pick who these guys are that will fit what he does. And they're out there, but they just have to get the right guy. So,
see, you call that heat. I think that's actually a golden situation. If you can figure out what to do with Trey Hendrickson, because one way or the other, you're either moving him or he's sticking around and he's either going to hold out and eventually come back, or whatever's whatever. But you can figure that out. But you had the opportunity to trade Jermaine Pratt, or figure that out, or bring in another guy and then move Jermaine Pratt. That contract's not terrible to move anyway. If you move off of Von Bell, which after what I saw last season, I don't hate moving off of him and bringing in a safety. I think it's a really good situation for him where he can kind of reset this defense. You saw it flashed at times last season, and more often than not, it was a disaster. But you you kind of get a fresh start. You needed a new voice in that room, I think, for the defense, and you got it in Al Golden for sure, with Lou being gone. But I don't know. I think it's a really good opportunity. Not necessarily heat right away, but just a you get to put your handprint all over this defense.
I know I would sleep a lot better as the offensive coordinator than the defensive coordinator right now if I'm with the Bengals. I would be, if I got Joe Burrow at the helm with the guys they signed, I would be sleeping a lot easier and with the weapons they have on offense. However, as you say, he can make it in his mold, and there's still some to make. And, that's, hopefully Dax Hill comes back and plays really well at corner. They've got, if he doesn't move into the slot, then maybe it's Josh Newton from last year, since the rookie who, kind of has more that build and that mold of a nickel guy maybe than Dax does. Cam Taylor, Britt, they've got some guys at corner.
DJ Turner.
But yes, DJ Turner. Safety, you got Battle and Stone there, and then you got to hope after that. Maybe Tyson Anderson, if he can play, stay healthy, could be some help. He's shown flashes, but he definitely has to stay healthy. But I don't know, if I had to throw my money on one position, it would be edge. But I could see them taking a defensive tackle too. Mm-hmm. I could see him taking the linebacker if he's there from Alabama, who can make plays on all three levels, and that's perfect for Al Golden. And then, he's kind of, I guess, from what I've read, Logan Wilson can kind of do that too. And it would be a nice combination, I think, for them. And I would not be upset with that. So they've got plenty of options, that's for sure. And options that might be able to help the defense this year. And that's what they're going to have to do. I don't know what they're thinking with Hendrickson right now and how that's going to shake out, because, in my mind, I'm thinking that position is locked down, but what if it's not? I just don't know what they're thinking. But that's why I think, because that situation's still fluid, you almost have to do the edge guy, right?
Yeah.
You have to take the guy at edge that you like the most at that pick if you're still sitting at 17, and maybe you can get that guy from if you move back a little. Maybe I don't know if Mike Green or Pierce is going to be there, how much longer after 17, if they're there at 17, but either one of those guys looks like it fits the bill. But maybe they like the guy from Georgia better and they can move back and get that guy. I don't know what they're thinking, but at least they do have options. But I also think they have to, maybe hit a couple of, if not home runs, maybe a couple of doubles in this draft with, rookies that can help right away.
Yeah, you're going to have to address guard at some point. I know I've thrown out the name here in this area, in this space, but Dalton Risner is still out there as a free agent. And I think you have to give that a good, long, hard look.
Right.
I don't know what the deal is with him, where he isn't with anybody currently. This is the second year in a row he's been a free agent. He's young. He's under 30. So that's a weird one. But he's out here saying, the Bengals are one of the teams that I'd be very interested in playing for. He's put that on his social media. I think he made a live video or something about it on Instagram or whatever.
They got to be thinking about it. They have to.
I don't know.
They got Cody Ford. They got the other dude they signed, the Lucas, the veteran.
Yeah, I can't remember his name either.
And Cordell Volson.
You got to get some depth there, but I don't know. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a defensive position. I think I'd be a little surprised if they took a safety at 17, regardless of who's there.
Yeah, I think I would too. They can probably grab one somewhere a little later, but the problem is they got to grab a few things a little later.
I think the only way they take a linebacker is if it's the kid from Alabama that's there still. I think that's
right.
That's the only one you take that early at 17.
Right.
Beyond that, I know that they've been tied to Mike Green an awful lot, the kid from Marshall. I don't love that pick. I think there's some question marks there. that there's some red flags, I guess. So I don't know. And even the defensive tackle from Texas, I know that there's some red flags around his name as well. Uh, I'd be, I guess, a little surprised if they don't go defensive line because I think they're just trying to shore up that defensive line. But I guess we're going to find out what position Al Golden really loves,
Yeah.
or what
Yep.
position he's maybe not in love with currently as things currently stand on this roster. So
I would think if they don't take an edge, then they feel good about doing something with Trey and having him back and
yeah,
all in. It would be my guess if they went somewhere outside of edge. And hopefully they do feel that way because that gives them a little more flexibility. Because I feel like if they don't know what's going on with him and they're not confident they're going to get something worked out or at least have a happy Trey Hendrickson playing in 2025 in Cincinnati, then they're kind of locked into this edge thing, I'm afraid.
well, we'll find out soon enough as we're roughly about 48 hours away from that pick. So, real quick here in the chat, Sean says, can the D possibly get worse if we don't keep Hendrickson?
Yes, that's a good point, and I think it can. And that's saying something, right?
Well, then you're going to have to score, what, like 52 a game to win?
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
That's all I'm worried about is it, they go to Pittsburgh and get beat, 48-46 or something.
Who's going to be the quarterback in Pittsburgh, George? Is it going to be Shadur? That's the name that's the hot name this week.
I don't know, but if it is, then it won't be a 48. They're not going to put up 48. Just because, I mean, I know Jaden Daniels, there are exceptions as rookies, but and it's different. The NFL's different now, and they're running offenses more college quarterback friendly than what they used to, but still to come in and do what Daniels did in his first, that doesn't happen every year. That doesn't. I mean, it just that's hard to do. Some rookies do well, okay. They still have, bad stretches, bad games, lots of interceptions. It's just, year one's tough for anyone. So that if he's starting for the Steelers, I would think the Steelers collectively probably take a little bit of a step back. What if it's Aaron Rodgers? Does that help?
Well, I was just going to make the point that the last Colorado Buffalo quarterback they had played really well for them. Just saying. His name was Cordell Stewart.
Yeah, I remember Cordell Stewart. He did a little bit of everything.
Yeah. But no, if it's Aaron Rodgers, look, sign me up if it's Aaron Rodgers. I would love for the Bengals to have to play him twice a year because he is in the twilight.
Oh my God, so much
of his career, and he might just be in the twilight zone for all we know.
Yeah, I think he should have hung it up before last year. That was just not good, and that he's still flirting with it. I think I heard him talking about it this week too somewhere, and of course, I think he thinks he's still coveted by everybody, but hell of a career. Yeah, hell of a career. But yeah, I think I would be okay with him in Pittsburgh too. But I think that would give them a better, if this makes sense, a better chance to win in 25. If they had him and Sanders sitting behind him for the most part.
Probably.
Yeah, but we'll see. But yeah, the Bengals have got to get something going with that defense. I mean, it's and Zach talked about it when they talked to him yesterday or today, and he knows, but that doesn't mean it'll get fixed. Everybody knows. So we'll see how they do in the draft, and we'll see if Al Golden, who I still think they're leaning on him really hard, we'll see how he gets it done. Track record's good.
Yep, time will tell. And like I said, 48 hours roughly from that pick. So we'll have some answers in just a couple days.
And it's and this defense he ran at Notre Dame is pretty much a current modern day NFL style defense. So it's not like he has to change a whole lot.
Not much. Your Cincinnati Reds, George, as we talked about earlier, they did lose to the Marlins tonight, 4-3. They currently sit at 11-13. Before tonight, they lost last night 6-3. So now you've lost 2 of 3 to the Marlins. You're hoping not to get swept by Miami, but that's all on the heels of a 24-2 victory on Easter Sunday, which I thought there was a typo or something when I got the alert that said that they won 24-2. I had to go actually look. It was an absolutely unreal game. But the Reds get 2 of 3 from the Orioles. Currently in the standings, they are in third place in the National League Central, 3 games behind the Chicago Cubs, and a game and a half as things currently stand behind Milwaukee. It's been a weird week. You take 2 of 3 from Baltimore, and then you drop 2 of 3 to potentially 3 of 3. We'll see tomorrow. But this team
tonight, I mean, that play at first base when Candelario, who, didn't come off the bag for the throw, and, Friedel makes that throw home when he should have hit the cutoff because he wasn't going to get the guy. That let the guy go to second, who ended up scoring later on that play I just brought up.
Yep.
It just, those things shouldn't be happening. Candelario, I was curious about that signing when they made it, and I'm still somewhat curious about it. I don't know. And he's not normally the first baseman, but still, you got to know, do not let the ball get past you in that situation because you're giving up a run.
0 for 3 tonight for Candelario, whose batting average now stands at 125 on the season, and we're 24 games into this thing. That's not a small. I mean, it's a over the course of the grand scheme of the entire season, it's a small sample size, but that's relatively not
right.
a small.
He started like this too, and then he tore it up for about a month, and then he was back in the same old funk. It's just been I wasn't a big fan of that signing when they did it, and it's kind of bearing out. However, and they've had a couple games where they've made some defensive gaffes that have been costly, and they've got to get that ironed out. But still in good shape, still early. Good to see Marte, hit a home run tonight. He's been hitting the ball pretty darn good for him. I think that was that message he got in spring training. Getting sit down with that first bunch was a good message. Woke him up. So it looks like hopefully he'll pan out and be the player they thought they were getting when they traded for him. Austin Hayes has been a help. Jose Trevino behind the plate has been a godsend, although he was out of that game Sunday and his backup has 6 hits. What about that? Your 9-hole hitter gets 6 hits in one game, which is the first time I guess that's ever happened since 1900.
Ever.
Yeah,
it's a catcher, which makes it even crazier. Like,
I just don't know how baseball's so funny that things like this happen just out of nowhere. This guy gets 6 hits, the Reds get 24 runs. I gave up on that game when it was 12-1. I just switched back over to golf and watched Justin Thomas win in a playoff, and then I see 24 runs. You got to be kidding me. I missed a lot when I turned over, but I mentioned Jose Trevino with Stevenson, and he's been really good in his absence and has actually hit way better than he's probably ever hit before. And Tyler was supposed to do a rehab start tonight in Louisville, so hopefully he gets in 3 or 4 games down there and they can get him back. And who else is coming back for them?
Wade Miley is making a rehab start in Dayton.
Yeah, Wade Miley. And it's funny because they may need him now. Spires is down with the shoulder impingement. They had to do a bullpen game. Heck, was that Sunday? It was.
Well, you had
Wasn't that
was
the
it
bullpen game?
was it Lodolo who had the paternity leave?
Yeah. He had to leave,
Yeah.
so he pitched yesterday, and Suter started Sunday. Threw three
Yeah.
good innings too. Anything they ask that guy to do, it seems like he's able to do. He's something else. Glad they have him. But yeah, that'd be a fun game to pitch in when they're scoring 24 for you, no doubt about it. But the Reds with that 24-run outburst too are now second in the National League in runs scored. Like their run differential went from like minus something, or it was right around even Steven, and then you throw 24 on the board, and then all of a sudden that changes. It's so, think about that. They're second in the league, or they were going into the night. God knows what it is now, but probably didn't change a whole lot. But you had 3 straight shutouts, what, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and then now you're second in the league in runs scored. And it's still April 22nd.
They have 123 runs scored as things currently stand. And the only teams above them would be the Yankees at 132 and the Cubs at 145. They have a plus 28 differential. The only teams above them are San Francisco at plus 33, San Diego at plus 35, the Cubs at plus 41, the Mets at plus 31, and that's it. No one in the entire American League has a better
so that
point
game
differential.
on its own was a plus 22, right? That's hilarious. Yeah, that skewed everything this early in the season because their offense isn't performing quite that well, but it looks good on paper now.
Well, and in true Reds fashion,
Wins is hitting 450 or something after that game.
In true Reds fashion, after they score double digits, they just lay an egg immediately after. It's almost, you can almost pencil that in the same way that you can the Bearcats shooting about 65% from the line every year. So
right, that's true. It doesn't matter who they bring in. I've never seen. And it just seems like that's been going on for quite a while now. It doesn't.
I think it's my whole life. I think it's my whole life. It feels like.
Yeah, it seems like it's been going on forever. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, the ball's the same, the rim's the same, but they got to have an elite shooter come in, and that kid would struggle to make 70% from the line.
We'll see what the Reds are able to do, though. You've got to figure something out. After the Marlins, I guess you've kind of got yourself in a nice spot to get right, as you will be playing the Rockies that currently stand at 4-17. And after that, you're playing the Cardinals, who are 9-14. So you're playing 2 teams that have not yet reached double-digit wins. Maybe you got a chance to get yourself right in those 2 series.
Yeah, they need to, and hopefully, they get everybody back in position settled. And like I said, it's great to see, Austin Hayes come in and provide a little bit of a spark right away.
Yeah.
Friedel's picked up the hitting. He's doing all right, and Ellie's doing what Ellie does, and he had those 2 errors in that game last week. Then he goes out and makes 2 of the best plays I've ever seen over the weekend. That one ball that he caught in left field way down the line was just it's not supposed to happen, and he made it look pretty easy.
You thought that was better than the one that he caught diving essentially
No,
second
but to
base.
cover that amount of ground, and I think it was Hayes in left field. He's running in, and he's not even like, I don't think he was going to get there. And it's just like, how does that happen? But yeah, that play up the middle was about as good as you're ever going to see. I mean, he flew. He was flying through the air. It was
literally.
Crazy. And then that other play he made when he made that sliding catch over behind third base was spectacular too. I don't know if you remember which one I'm talking about, but all 3 of those happened in pretty rapid fire succession. And he's, still driving in runs. He's been hitting the ball okay, still striking out a lot, but I can live with that because it gives you so much other stuff.
I saw somewhere tonight that the pop out he had to right field in like the 7th inning or whatever would have been a home run in 12 of the major league ballparks. So he's still hitting the snot out of the ball. But
yeah,
I don't know. You can't give up on a guy this early in his career just because he leads the league in errors at shortstop. Otherwise, you would have lost out on guys like, I don't know, Concepcion and Barry Larkin. So,
yeah, I'm. Although I'm a guy that said I'd kind of like to see him in center.
Oh, I know. I did not agree with you.
I know. We'll see. Hopefully it comes around because certainly it's in there. It's just, can he consistently make the routine plays and not boot a ball at a critical moment? And all that comes with time. I mean, like you said, he is still relatively young, and he's got so much talent. I shudder to think what his next contract's going to be. I shudder worse to think where it's going to be.
I wouldn't call 23 relatively young. That is very young, George. Very young compared to both of us.
Oh, compared to me, it's a baby.
Yes. I was trying to be nice. Moving on.
I'm damn near triple him.
Moving on, FC Cincinnati. They got another win here, George, and they did it not by blanking the other team, but by scoring a lot.
3.
Compared to their last couple games, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is. But they've won 4 in a row now. And they're getting healthy. They're getting guys back. Evander was back for this game, and Matt Miazga came back and played, the first half. And I guess he played a little bit the game before that, but they're starting to get healthy and also seem to be playing better at the right time. So, it seems like that's a good thing. They should feel like they're on the upswing. I think they feel like they are. Try to make it 5 in a row. An afternoon game coming up Saturday at TQL against Sporting Kansas City. So exciting times for them, and they still have 2 or 3 guys they hope to get back that can maybe help with a little more firepower. So, it's definitely they're tied for first or second now in the conference, right?
According to the table, they are 9. No, I'm sorry, 6-1-2, tied with Charlotte FC.
19 points.
19 points, and that's
but
1
Miami's
point better.
Got a game to play yet because FC's played one more game and Miami's a point back. But it's Correct. So early. But it's just good that they're up there where you feel good that they'll, if they don't have the best record in MLS, they'll certainly have a good seed in the playoffs, and that does matter. That definitely does matter. So I think they're in for another pretty exciting season as long as they get their other players back, which everybody's on track and should be back soon.
Yeah, they play Kansas City on Saturday. Hopefully the weather it plays nice as it is supposed to rain all weekend.
I'll tell you, nothing can be worse than that game they had. Oh, that cold, rainy night. That was about 3 weeks ago. I felt so bad for them. I felt bad for the fans too. Oh my God. Sit out in that. Ooh, I'm too old for that.
They are favored to win though, so we'll see what happens there. But outside of that, George, anything going on in high school baseball?
No, you got the All-A Classic going on in Kentucky, and there's still local teams involved in that. Beechwood is in the mix, and maybe a shout out to them. They have a pitching coach named Briley Sider who's, has this weird medical thing going on. It's a brain tumor, but it's a weird kind. But I think it's something they can handle. But they're kind of, playing on his behalf. He's a pitching coach and a young guy. He's only like 27. But we certainly wish the best for him. And Beechwood hoping to win it all in that All-A Classic for him. Other than that, in Kentucky, Riles ranked 12th. And in Ohio, how about this? Moeller's still number 1 in the coaches poll.
Shocking.
Mason number 2.
Oh,
Mason now 10-1. Yep. And Lakota West is 11th, but lost a couple games over the weekend. I think they lost to Oak Hills yesterday and Elder on Saturday. So the 2 West Side schools got them, but still ranked number 11 and still big things expected there. But that'll be a hell of a battle in the GMC with Mason and Lakota West in there.
well, speaking of teams losing, we did not discuss anything about UC baseball because of what happened today. Just went ahead and ignored that. So on that note,
that final? It was 15 or something, right?
Yeah,
6?
we're not talking about it, George. We're getting out of here.
Okay. That's fine with me. That's disappointing, though. It's disappointing that 5 or 6 straight losses.
In front of the tens of fans that were there supporting that team in Norwood. But that's going to do it for another episode of George in the Jungle. Be back with us at 9 o'clock next Tuesday as we do it all over again. But we want to thank Remington Tavern for sponsoring us as always. You can find them at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. Be sure to grab a Cincy Light while you're there. Thanks to Cincy Light for sponsoring our studios here. But for George Vogel, I am Aaron Smith. We will see you back here next Tuesday on George in the Jungle.
Thank you, Aaron.